Thank you for joining us today. You've had an incredible near-death experience that you'd like to share with our audience. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Of course. My name is Sophia Lawson. I'm 42 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse in Chicago. I've been married to my wonderful husband Jonathan for 15 years, and we have 2 children, Emma who's 12 and Jacob who's 9. And you recently had a life-changing experience, is that right? Yes, that's correct. About 3 months ago, I had what doctors have classified as a near-death experience. It was the most profound and transformative event of my life. Can you walk us through what happened? It was a Tuesday evening, and I had just finished my shift at the hospital. I was driving home, looking forward to having dinner with my family. The last thing I remember is stopping at a red light about a mile from our house. And then what happened? According to witnesses and the police report, a drunk driver ran the red light and T-boned my car on the driver's side at high speed. The impact was catastrophic. My car was totaled, and I was trapped inside, unconscious and bleeding heavily. That sounds terrifying. What do you recall next? The next thing I was aware of was a sensation of floating. It was as if I was suddenly free from my body, weightless and without pain. I could see the accident scene below me, the crumpled cars, the flashing lights of emergency vehicles arriving. I saw paramedics working frantically to extract me from the wreckage. You were having an out-of-body experience? Yes, exactly. I felt completely calm and at peace, just observing everything happening below. Then I became aware of a warm, bright light above me. It was the most beautiful, inviting light I've ever seen. I felt drawn to it, like it was calling me home. What happened as you moved towards the light? As I got closer to the light, I felt enveloped by the most incredible love, a love deeper and purer than anything I've ever experienced on earth. It was overwhelming in the best possible way. And then I saw him. Him? Jesus. He was there, welcoming me with open arms. His presence was so real, so vivid. He smiled at me with such warmth and compassion. I felt like I was truly seeing him face to face for the first time. What was that like, encountering Jesus? It's hard to put into words how amazing it was. I felt completely known and completely loved. All my flaws, all my mistakes, none of it mattered. I was home. Jesus embraced me, and in that moment I understood the depths of his love for me in a way I never had before. That sounds incredibly powerful. What happened next? Jesus began to speak to me. His voice was gentle yet authoritative. He said, "My beloved child, I have so much to show you. Come and see what I've prepared for you and for all who trust in me." And what did he show you? He took my hand, and suddenly we were soaring through the most spectacular landscapes I've ever seen. We passed through clouds that shimmered like gold and silver. I saw mountains of breathtaking beauty, valleys filled with flowers in colors I didn't even know existed. There were crystal-clear rivers and waterfalls that seemed to be made of living light. It sounds like a paradise beyond imagination. It truly was. And as amazing as the natural beauty was, it paled in comparison to what Jesus showed me next. We came to this immense, shining city. It was unlike anything I've ever seen on earth, so vast and intricate and perfect in every detail. Can you describe the city for us? It was laid out in a perfect square, with high walls made of jasper that gleamed like polished glass. There were 12 gates, each made from a single enormous pearl. The streets were paved with pure gold, but it was transparent like crystal. The foundations of the city walls were adorned with every kind of precious stone, sapphires, emeralds, topaz, amethyst, and many others I couldn't even name. That matches the description of the New Jerusalem in the book of Revelation. Is that what you were seeing? Yes, exactly. Jesus confirmed to me that this was indeed the holy city, the New Jerusalem, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. He explained that this city is the eternal dwelling place he's preparing for all who belong to him. What else did you observe about the city? What struck me most was the light. Everything was illuminated with this radiant, golden glow. But I didn't see a sun or any artificial light sources. Jesus told me that the glory of God himself was the light of the city. There was no darkness, no shadows, just pure, warm, inviting light everywhere. That's fascinating. Did you go inside the city? We did. Jesus led me through one of the pearly gates, and I was immediately overwhelmed by the beauty and majesty inside. The first thing I noticed was this wide boulevard running through the center of the city. It was like a main street, but more glorious than anything you could imagine. What did you see along this street? There was a crystal-clear river flowing right down the middle of the street. Jesus told me it was the river of the water of life. On either side of the river were the most beautiful trees I've ever seen, the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit. The leaves of the trees were for the healing of the nations. This aligns very closely with the biblical descriptions of heaven. What else did Jesus show you? He took me to what he called the Father's house. It was this enormous, magnificent structure, but calling it a house doesn't do it justice. It was more like a vast palace complex, stretching as far as I could see in every direction. Can you describe it in more detail? The architecture was unlike anything I've seen on earth, both familiar and utterly otherworldly at the same time. There were soaring towers, grand courtyards, and countless rooms and halls. Everything was constructed of the most precious materials: gold, platinum, crystal, rare gems. But what struck me most was how warm and inviting it felt. This wasn't a cold, ostentatious display of wealth. It felt like home. Jesus mentioned showing you what he had prepared. Did he elaborate on that? Yes, he did. He led me down this long corridor with countless doors on either side. He stopped in front of one particular door and said, "This is for you." When he opened the door, I gasped in amazement. What did you see? It was the most beautiful room, or maybe sweet is a better word, that I could ever imagine. Everything about it was perfectly tailored to my tastes and personality. The colors, the furnishings, the artwork on the walls, it all felt intimately familiar yet more wonderful than anything I could have designed myself. That's incredible. Did Jesus explain the purpose of these rooms? He did. He told me that in his Father's house are many dwelling places, and that he has gone to prepare a place for each of his followers. These rooms, he said, are eternal homes for God's children, places where we will dwell in perfect communion with him and with each other. Did you notice anything unique about your particular room? Yes, there were several things that stood out. There was a beautiful painting on one wall that depicted scenes from my life, moments where I had shown love or kindness to others. Jesus explained that these were treasures I had stored up in heaven through my actions on earth. That's fascinating. What else did you observe? There was a bookshelf filled with books. When I looked closer, I realized they were journals of my prayers and conversations with God throughout my life. Jesus said that every word spoken to the Father in faith was precious and preserved. It sounds like every detail was deeply personal and meaningful. Absolutely. There was even a display case with what looked like medals or trophies. Jesus explained that these represented rewards for faithfulness and obedience in various aspects of my life. He emphasized that while all believers are equally loved and welcomed in heaven, there are degrees of reward based on how we live our lives on earth. That's a profound concept. Did Jesus show you anything else in the Father's house? Yes, he took me to this grand hall that he called the banquet room. It was enormous, with a table that seemed to stretch endlessly. Jesus said this is where all of God's children will feast together in perfect fellowship for eternity. That's a beautiful image. Did you encounter any other people during your experience? I did. As we walked through the city, I saw countless people, more than I could ever number. They were from every nation, tribe, and language, just as the Bible describes. Everyone was filled with joy and peace, worshiping God and enjoying perfect community with one another. Did you recognize anyone? Yes, I saw my grandmother who had passed away when I was a teenager. She looked so young and vibrant. I also saw a friend from college who had died in a car accident. They both embraced me and told me how excited they were for me to join them someday, but that it wasn't my time yet. That must have been emotional for you. Did Jesus explain why you were being shown all of this? He did. He told me that he was giving me a glimpse of what awaits those who put their trust in him. He wanted me to share this hope with others, to let them know that there is so much more beyond this earthly life. Did Jesus say anything else to you specifically? Yes, he looked at me with such love and said, "I am so proud of you. You have been faithful with what I've entrusted to you. Continue to love others and point them to me. Your reward in heaven will be great." That's incredibly moving. How did you feel in that moment? I felt a depth of joy and peace that I can't even describe. All my doubts, all my fears just melted away in his presence. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was loved, that I had a purpose, and that the best was yet to come. It sounds like an utterly transformative experience. How did it come to an end? Jesus looked at me and said, "It's not your time yet. You have more work to do for me on earth. Remember what you've seen and share it with others." Then he embraced me one more time, and suddenly I felt myself being pulled back. Back to your body? Yes. The next thing I knew, I was aware of intense pain and bright lights. I could hear voices around me, urgent and excited. I had been in a coma for 3 days, and I was just regaining consciousness in the ICU. That must have been quite a shock, coming back to physical reality. It was. Part of me didn't want to leave the incredible peace and joy I had experienced. But I also felt a new sense of purpose and mission for my life here on Earth. How has this experience changed you? In every way imaginable. I have a completely new perspective on life and death. I'm no longer afraid of dying. I know what's waiting for me on the other side. But I also have a much greater appreciation for the preciousness of each day we have here on Earth. Has it affected your faith? Absolutely. My faith has been strengthened beyond measure. It's one thing to believe in heaven and eternal life. It's another thing entirely to have experienced a taste of it firsthand. I know without a doubt that Jesus is real, that his love for us is beyond comprehension, and that he is preparing an amazing future for all who trust in him. I'm sure many will be touched by your testimony. Now, I'd like to dive a bit deeper into some of the specifics of what you saw and experienced. You mentioned the New Jerusalem. Can you elaborate on the scale and grandeur of the city? Certainly. The sheer size of the city was beyond comprehension. Jesus explained to me that it was 1,400 miles in length, width, and height, a perfect cube. Try to imagine a city that stretches from New York to Denver, and then that same distance straight up into the sky. It's almost impossible to grasp the scale. That's truly mind-boggling. Did you get a sense of the layout or organization of the city? Yes, to some extent. Despite its enormous size, everything felt perfectly arranged and easy to navigate. There were beautiful parks and gardens interspersed throughout the city. I saw magnificent buildings that seemed to be centers of learning, creativity, and worship. Everything was interconnected by these shimmering, golden streets. You mentioned earlier that there was no sun or moon. How was the city illuminated? The light came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It was as if the very atmosphere was permeated with this warm, golden radiance. Jesus explained that this was the glory of God himself illuminating every corner of the city. There was no night, no darkness at all, just perpetual, perfect light. That's fascinating. Did you notice any other unique features about the environment? One thing that struck me was the perfect temperature. It wasn't hot or cold, just pleasantly warm and comfortable. The air felt incredibly pure and invigorating to breathe. And there was this sense of vibrant life everywhere, in the plants, in the water, even in what seemed like inanimate objects. Everything felt alive with God's presence. You mentioned seeing many people there. Can you tell us more about that? Yes, the city was filled with people, more than I could count. They were from every ethnic background imaginable, all ages, all wearing these beautiful, radiant white robes. Everyone looked so healthy and vibrant, no sickness, no disabilities, no signs of aging. Did you interact with any of these people besides your grandmother and friend? I did have brief interactions with several others. What struck me most was the joy and love radiating from everyone. There was no fear, no suspicion, no awkwardness, just genuine delight in meeting and connecting with one another. That sounds wonderful. Did you observe people engaged in any particular activities? Yes, I saw people engaged in all sorts of activities. There were groups gathered in what looked like study or discussion sessions, others creating beautiful works of art or music. I saw people tending to the gardens and parks. But everything was done with this sense of joyful purpose, not as work but as a delightful expression of creativity and service. You mentioned music. What was the music of heaven like? Oh, it was indescribably beautiful. There was this constant undercurrent of music throughout the city, like a heavenly symphony that never ended. I heard choirs singing in perfect harmony, instruments I've never heard before, and even what seemed like the very elements themselves joining in the melody. It was as if all of creation was offering up continuous praise to God. That sounds absolutely breathtaking. You mentioned earlier about rewards in heaven. Can you elaborate on what Jesus showed you regarding this? Yes, Jesus explained that while salvation is a free gift received by faith, there are rewards in heaven based on how we live our lives on earth. He showed me what looked like a ceremony where believers were receiving crowns and other honors from him. But interestingly, everyone who received these rewards immediately cast them back at Jesus' feet in worship, acknowledging that any good in them was because of him. That's a profound image. Did Jesus give you any insights into what kinds of actions on earth lead to rewards in heaven? He did. He emphasized that it's not about grand, public displays of piety, but rather the small, often unseen acts of love, kindness, and faithfulness. He showed me scenes of people being rewarded for things like patiently caring for a sick family member, quietly giving to those in need without recognition, remaining faithful in prayer even when it seemed like nothing was happening. That's encouraging to hear that even small acts of obedience are noticed and rewarded. Did you learn anything about the concept of time in heaven? That's an interesting question. Time seemed to work differently there. It didn't feel linear like it does here on earth. There was no sense of rush or urgency, yet also no boredom or wasted moments. Jesus explained that in eternity, we'll have unlimited time to explore, learn, create, and grow in our relationship with God and with each other. That's a fascinating concept to try to wrap our minds around. You mentioned learning and growing. Does that mean we don't know everything instantly in heaven? No, we don't become all-knowing. Jesus showed me that heaven is a place of continuous discovery and wonder. There are libraries filled with knowledge to explore, new skills to learn, endless depths of God's character to plumb. He said that for all eternity, we will be growing in our understanding of His love and the marvels of His creation. That certainly challenges the notion of heaven being a static, possibly boring place. Did you get any sense of what day-to-day life is like for those in heaven? It's hard to describe in earthly terms because it's so different from what we experience here. There's a perfect balance of rest and activity, of individual pursuits and community engagement. I saw people enjoying rich relationships, engaging in stimulating conversations, and collaborating on creative projects. But underlying everything was this constant awareness of God's presence and a perpetual attitude of worship. It sounds like a perfect fulfillment of how we were originally created to live. Did Jesus show you anything about the new earth that the Bible mentions? Yes, He did. He took me to what He called the viewing room in the Father's house. It was like a massive observatory with windows looking out over the most spectacular landscapes I've ever seen. Jesus explained that this was the renewed earth, familiar in some ways, but perfected and freed from the effects of sin and decay. Can you describe what you saw of this new earth? It was breathtakingly beautiful. I saw vast, pristine forests, crystal-clear lakes and rivers, majestic mountains, and lush valleys. The colors were more vivid than anything on our current earth. The animal kingdom was in perfect harmony. I saw lions laying down with lambs, just as Isaiah prophesied. There was no sign of pollution, decay, or death anywhere. That's a beautiful picture. Did Jesus say anything about our relationship to this new earth? He did. He explained that we would have the joy of exploring and stewarding this renewed creation. He hinted at adventures and discoveries beyond anything we can imagine now. But he emphasized that while the new earth will be amazing, our primary joy and focus will always be our relationship with God Himself. That's profound. Now, I'm curious, did Jesus show you or tell you anything about the judgment that the Bible speaks of? He did, and it was one of the more sobering parts of my experience. He showed me a great white throne, with all of humanity gathered before it. I saw that every person's life was being reviewed, every thought, word, and deed laid bare. For those who had put their faith in Christ, their sins were covered by His blood. But for those who had rejected Him, it was a terrifying scene of facing judgment without that covering. That must have been difficult to witness. Did Jesus say anything about hell or eternal separation from God? Yes, and it was heartbreaking. He showed me a place of utter darkness and despair, completely cut off from God's presence. He explained that this was never His desire for anyone, but that He respects the free will He has given to humanity. Those who choose to reject His offer of salvation are ultimately choosing this separation. That's a heavy topic. How did seeing this affect you? It gave me a much greater urgency to share the gospel with others. Seeing the reality of eternal separation from God made me realize how vital it is that people understand the choice they're making in this life. It's made me much bolder in talking about my faith and inviting others to know Jesus. That's a powerful motivation. Shifting gears a bit, did you learn anything about the role of angels in heaven? Yes, I saw countless angels throughout my experience. They seemed to have various roles, some were engaged in worship, others appeared to be messengers or guardians. Jesus explained that angels are created beings, distinct from humans, who serve God and play a role in carrying out His purposes both in heaven and on earth. Interesting. Did you have any direct interaction with angels? I did have a few brief interactions. They were incredibly beautiful and powerful beings, but also humble and completely focused on glorifying God. One angel told me about how they rejoice every time a sinner repents and turns to God. That's fascinating. Now, I'm curious about something. Did you see or learn anything about how heaven relates to our prayers here on earth? Yes, that was one of the most amazing things Jesus showed me. There was this area He called the incense room. It was filled with these golden bowls, and Jesus explained that these bowls contained the prayers of God's people on earth. I could see them rising like incense before God's throne. It really emphasized how much God values and responds to our prayers. That's a beautiful image. Did you gain any insights into how God answers prayers? Jesus showed me that every sincere prayer is heard and answered, though not always in the way we expect. Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes no, and sometimes wait. But He assured me that God always responds out of His perfect love and wisdom, even when we can't understand it from our limited perspective. That's comforting to know. Now, you mentioned earlier about rooms or mansions prepared for believers. Can you tell us more about what you saw regarding these? Certainly. Jesus took me down this incredibly long corridor with countless doors. He explained that each door led to a personalized dwelling place for a believer. When He opened the door to my room, I was amazed at how perfectly it reflected my personality and the things that bring me joy. Can you describe your room in more detail? It was spacious and filled with light. The colors were my favorites, soft blues and greens. There was a cozy reading nook with shelves full of books. I saw a piano and other musical instruments, art supplies, and a telescope for stargazing. Everything I love was there, but perfected beyond anything I could imagine on earth. That sounds wonderful. Did Jesus say anything about how these rooms are prepared? He explained that He knows each of us intimately and designs these spaces to perfectly reflect our unique personalities and the desires of our hearts. But He also said that the rooms grow and change as we grow in our relationship with Him. They're not static spaces, but dynamic reflections of our ongoing journey with God. That's a beautiful concept. Did you see anyone else's room? Jesus did show me a few other rooms briefly. Each one was completely unique. One looked like a vast library, another like an artist studio with the most amazing views. He explained that in heaven, we'll have the opportunity to pursue and develop all the gifts and interests He's given us, free from any limitations. That's exciting to think about. Now, I'm curious, did Jesus show you or tell you anything about how events on earth look from heaven's perspective? Yes, He did. There was a place He called the Watchtower. From there, I could see events unfolding on earth. What struck me was how different things looked from heaven's viewpoint. Things that seem hugely important on earth often appeared insignificant, while small acts of faith and love shone brightly. That's a profound shift in perspective. Did you gain any insights into how God views human history and current events? Jesus showed me that God is intricately involved in human affairs, working out His purposes even through events that seem chaotic or meaningless to us. He emphasized that God's ultimate plan is for redemption and restoration, and that every event on earth is moving towards that final goal. That's reassuring to hear. Did you learn anything about how believers on earth and those in heaven relate to each other? Yes, Jesus showed me that there's a strong connection between the church on earth and the saints in heaven. He called it the great cloud of witnesses, mentioned in Hebrews 12. I saw that those in heaven are aware of and interested in what's happening on earth, especially in the lives of believers. They cheer us on, so to speak, as we run our race of faith. That's encouraging to think about. Now, as we start to wrap up, I'm curious, did Jesus give you any specific messages or instructions to bring back to people on earth? He did. His main message was one of hope and urgency. He wants people to know that He loves them deeply and has prepared an amazing future for all who put their trust in Him. But He also stressed the importance of being ready, of living each day with eternity in mind. Did He give you any specific warnings or things to watch out for? Yes, he warned about the danger of getting too caught up in the things of this world and losing sight of what truly matters. He emphasized the importance of staying connected to him through prayer and studying his word. He also cautioned against false teachers who distort the gospel message. Those are important reminders. How has it impacted your daily life? I find myself much more focused on what truly matters. Material things, career advancement, worldly success, none of that seems very important anymore compared to loving God and loving others. I'm much more intentional about sharing my faith and showing Christ's love to everyone I encounter. Have you experienced any skepticism when sharing your story? Of course. I understand that it sounds incredible, and I probably would have been skeptical myself before it happened to me. But I know what I experienced, and I feel compelled to share it regardless of what others might think. What would you say to someone who doubts the reality of your experience? I would encourage them to look at the evidence, not just my story, but the countless similar accounts from people all over the world who have had near-death experiences. While the details may vary, there are remarkable consistencies in what people report seeing and feeling. Speaking of consistency, how does your experience align with traditional Christian teachings about heaven? In many ways, it aligns very closely. The idea of Jesus preparing a place for us, the emphasis on love and relationship with God, the concept of eternity as active and purposeful, these are all found in Scripture. But I think my experience also expanded my understanding. For example, the idea of heaven as a place of continued growth and creativity isn't always emphasized in traditional teachings, but it's certainly consistent with the nature of God as revealed in the Bible. What would you say is the most important thing you learned from your experience? Without a doubt, it's the reality and depth of God's love for us. Everything I saw in heaven, the beauty, the joy, the perfect peace, it all flows from God's incredible love. And the amazing thing is, we don't have to wait until we die to experience that love. It's available to us right now, through a relationship with Jesus. I just want to emphasize how real and vivid it all was. This wasn't a dream or a hallucination. It was more real than anything I've experienced in this physical life. And the love I felt, the all-encompassing, perfect love of Jesus, it's changed me forever. I want everyone to know that this love is available to them too. That's a beautiful message to end on. Sophia, thank you so much for sharing your extraordinary experience with us. I'm sure it will give hope and encouragement to many. Thank you for allowing me to share. My prayer is that everyone who hears this will be inspired to seek a deeper relationship with Jesus and to live with eternity in mind. Heaven is real, it's more wonderful than we can imagine, and it's available to all who put their trust in Christ.